Yeah, I can't.
Because I've been cut already. I like cards.
Nobody.
I can see his
Bummer. I know. We should.
Make sure I sign one anyway. I'll sign.
Pittman, has got something special. I think he's got. Welcome, guys, to the Gridiron Gurus. My name's Keith. This is Jesse. It's presented by Fanmosphere. And here in just a few minutes, guys, we're going to be welcoming on the head coach of Lindsey Wilson, Coach Chris Oliver. They just won the national championship at the NAIA level. And I wanted to make sure I got that right because we've watched a lot of football and have had different coaches on and different people to interview. So I want to make sure I got that right. But the NAIA national champion, and they won not only the national championship game in a convincing fashion, they won every game in convincing fashion in the playoffs, and as far as that goes.
Yeah, the whole season they just ran through everybody. But this one's pretty cool because Lindsey Wilson's only about a little over an hour north of us,
right? So
it's kind of cool.
And their program's only been in existence. They had it a long time ago, and then was dormant for 70 years. And then 2011. Brought it back, and then in 10 years, Coach Chris Oliver was the guy that they brought in to revive the program, and then saw it all the way. I think the quote that you used was seeing it through fruition, and then to a national championship game. So not only the game, but a win in the game.
Yeah, to progress to a national championship that quickly is pretty cool.
Right.
I'm excited to hear some of the stuff that he has to say. He actually got his start at Ohio State with Jim Tressel, which is really cool.
Yeah, you was mentioning that to me just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, excited to see how that experience kind of shaped him.
Right.
But I think it'll be a fun interview.
Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to some of the stuff that he's the season that he's had and be able to talk about that. Not only that, but like you talk about Jim Tressel, and I'm interested to see how he got his start as far as getting the job at Lindsey Wilson and how the start there was getting players in and all that good stuff. So, but here in a few minutes, guys, we'll be welcoming on Coach Chris Oliver, and hope you guys, stick around with us because it's going to be very, very exciting. Welcome, guys, to the Gridiron Gurus. My name's Keith. This is Jesse, and we're very welcome to be joined by Coach Chris Oliver from Lindsey Wilson, newly crowned national champion. Congratulations, Coach.
Oh, thank you. It was a great year, and really proud of our kids. It was a special time.
Hey, absolutely, man. That championship game was something to watch. And not just the championship game, your whole playoff run. And, I mean, just, we was talking about it on one of our previous episodes. I think the most points scored on you this season was 28 points.
I think so.
13 points in a national championship game that got scored against you, and you scored, I think, 49. So, I mean, that's impressive, especially, for a national championship game.
Yeah, it was one of those years where, we just our guys played really well, and it seemed like every week we just played great team football, and I mean that from the standpoint of, if the offense was just a little bit slow getting started, whenever that was, it's like our defense was on point that day. I thought really in like probably 10 of our 11 games, we felt like our special teams just really got the upper hand on the matchup. And, when you can leave every game and feel like you're just playing great complementary football and each side of the ball is helping each other out, man, you're tough to beat when you do that. And it was just one of those years where it came together an awful lot for us.
Absolutely, man. That's one of those things where people talk about, offense and defense, and a lot of times they don't mention special teams at all. And I love the fact that you include that aspect of your team. Special teams sometimes get left out. I've coached middle school football a little bit, and I've seen both sides of it. I've seen coaches that, they'll spend 10 minutes a week working on, kickoff, kick coverage, punt return, and that 10 minutes for all that combined. And then I've been on the other side of it where a coach will spend literally an hour on the day before the game, and then 30 minutes the other days working on different fakes and onside kicks and just making sure kids know where they need to be. So
it's always been a big point of emphasis for us in our program, and I think when you go to each level of college football, has its own unique challenges. But then when you think about financial aid and you think about the number of players you can play, number of guys on scholarship and all those things, NAI has limitations on the number of scholarships who can play over the course of the season in a varsity contest. So it ends up being very similar to like managing an NFL type of roster, where you have that 50 plus man roster. So it's not quite like, Division One, where you can play an unlimited number of guys in a single game. NAI is unique. So especially with special teams, you have to coach it in a specific way, and you have to get your guys to buy into that process. We've got co-special teams coordinators, Daniel Cotter and Mike Thrower. They've done an awesome job for us, taking the bull by the horns, and our kids have bought into that, and that's been huge.
That's pretty cool, man.
So, Coach, let me ask you, going off of that, what you just said about the limited scholarships and things. You were hired by Lindsey Wilson to revive the program after 75 years without football.
Mm-hmm.
What was that whole process like, getting that started? Like, what was your plan of action, and how hard was that as far as recruiting goes to start a program from ground up in the NAIA with that limited number?
Yeah. Well, I'd been a part of a startup program once before as an assistant coach, and I was at Ohio Dominican University in Columbus. And, we started that program in 2004 and had been there for 5 seasons through 08. And, certainly that experience and seeing us grow and have success there as an assistant coach helped me secure an interview when this process, came about. And you kind of get your foot in the door, and there's very few people in the spectrum that have that experience of going through that and kind of getting your teeth kicked in a little bit and then growing and building from there. And we've been through that process and done that. So that helped me get the interview here. And then, it was a right fit with our administration. But you fast forward to January of 09, we kicked off in fall of 2010. I started in January of 09, and, we didn't have any players and all those things, obviously. So you come in and you're trying to sell what you want your tradition to be. There's a lot of positives with that. Sometimes as a head coach, if you take over a program that's struggling, you're trying to change people's perception of the past and come in and do something completely different. Well, for us, that wasn't the issue. What we're trying to do is sell you on something that doesn't exist in any capacity right now, and you're selling them on a vision. So you're building upon that experience with doing it once before as an assistant coach, but you're selling people on a vision of what you want it to be. And thankfully, we had a lot of support and we're able to get that done. But one of the things you could fall into, I think, when you start a program is that it's very attractive for 17 and 18-year-olds to think that, hey, that's a place I can go and I can start right away, and I can play and I can compete there faster than I may be able to at other places. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to play early and do that. But if that is the main reason that you are picking your college, then sometimes that gets derailed and doesn't always go the way that young person wants it to. So it's a fine line, I think, when you're going through that process of starting a program. You know that carrot is out there. You know that that's attractive for a lot of young people, and that's certainly a selling point. But man, if that's the main thing you're selling, and that young person doesn't have that competitive nature and all those things that you're trying to measure, then that can be a third rail that you got to be very cautious. You don't touch that too often. So that's an interesting part about starting a program. And we kind of go through those lumps, and you get a little bit of turnover in your roster sometimes. But by the time we got to really our 4th year, we were starting to really stabilize and have that group of leaders who were fully invested in the program and guys who had been there. And that's when we really started to take off.
Right. Getting young men to really buy in is, it's hard, like you said, because all those kids are wanting to, like I said, they're wanting to start. And that's probably the reason that they may have came to you in the first place. But, by the time that you, like you said, about the 4th year, you got guys that had been there, at least a couple of years, if not 3 or 4, and they have fully invested in seeing that program succeed. And eventually, you did get the success you wanted. And it's a great testament to what you've done, leading those guys. My question, Jesse hit on the the student athlete part of it. How hard was it to get guys that wanted to coach? That's where I was wanting to ask when you started up. How hard was it getting coaches that hey guys, we're still, like you said, '09, and then you started in 2010. We're going to be a year out from even playing a game. How hard was it to get coaches to buy in and stick with you?
Well, we hired two coaches pretty quickly who were here and who did not coach with us. Well, they didn't go through a season in the fall of '09 because they were with us here.
Right.
So it was just two other guys that we asked to do that. One of them I'd known before, Brian Foose. We'd worked together. So that was a little bit easier sell, so to speak, because he had been through that before, and then we had a history. The other one, Mike Catilius, our defensive coordinator, hadn't really been through that before, and that was his first time doing it. But I think, as coaches, we want to coach. We want to be out there, and there's a lot of different parts of coaching, but certainly in football, when you're working 365 days a year for maybe 10 guaranteed opportunities. If you have a season where you say, hey, we're not going to go play this fall, but we're still going to do all that other stuff, man, there's some downside to that, but that's just part of the process when you start. But luckily, it was just two guys that we had to really sell on that process, and then we filled the rest of our staff after that '09 season when other teams were playing and going through that. But certainly the biggest challenge is not finding anybody to coach. It's finding the right people to coach. It's attracting the right types of men into your program who can be that great role model, who can invest in the process, who, you have a head coach where, I'm a believer that you probably can't microwave that process of starting a program. It has to bake, and it takes a certain amount of time. And you take the shortcuts, and you're going to taste those shortcuts eventually. So we got to make sure that our assistant coaches understand that process too, and understand that vision. And I thought our guys that we had over the years and who have kind of come and gone, and then even our current guys who are doing awesome. We've had just such a great group of assistant coaches come through this program and invest in our young men. And, that's been just such a huge part of our success. You just can't underestimate how important that is to the development of the young men in your program.
Right. I like that. You got the difference in a hot pocket and a brisket,
Yeah.
Hot pockets, 30 seconds we're ready to eat. Brisket, you got 14 hours. So, that process there. I like that comparison, Coach. I really do.
Yeah.
So Coach, keeping on that same topic, you guys just by your second year at Lindsey Wilson finished 7-3, and then by year 5 you were already in the NAIA playoffs and actually made it to the quarterfinals. How important was that? What did it mean to you and your staff to be able to see that quick of a progression?
Well, I think it's encouraging. When I go back, if I'm, just very honest, looking at the progression of our program, we went 7-3 that second year. I don't know if we were deserving of a 7-3 record. We had some games where we probably won with some smoke and mirrors, and sometimes you feel like, those 60 minutes went by, man, we must be living right because we just found a way to get it done. And we had a little bit of a setback our third year. We only won 3 games our third year. And I think a big part of that is, even though we were starting to experience some success winning, maybe our culture wasn't as strong as it needed to be. And if you can, get young men to start thinking, and coaches and too, well, we're 7-3 in year 2, so we'll just roll the dice in year 3, and we'll go out there and we'll take those next steps, and we'll go 9-1 or 10-0 or whatever that is. That little bit of mental weakness creeps into athletes and coaches everywhere, and that's what's one of the amazing things about Coach Saban is that he just stomps that out every year and just keeps those guys going again and again, and that to me is just terribly impressive. So I think that creeped into our program a little bit in year 3, and then all of a sudden we had a reset and a wake-up call, and then year 4 and year 5 going into the playoffs, that was a big, big step forward for us. So I think there was a necessary reset for us, kind of where we were at, but then our guys, as we started to get that stronger leadership, that continuity on the roster, our guys understood that, there's a lot that goes into winning one college football game. I mean, the entire process that goes into winning one college game is not simple and not short. And it's not just from Sunday to Saturday. It's a year-long thing divided up on those guaranteed opportunities. So I think our guys started to understand that. And for me, I think I started to coach it better. You know, when I was hired, I was 27. I was 29 when we played game one. Some time had passed there, but I was still developing who I was as a coach and still growing and figuring out those buttons to push and how to, get that process stronger and stronger. So all those things that went into that, certainly seeing that success early on is encouraging. But if you lose sight of why you are having success, or you can't learn from those other opportunities, then you're going to have big problems. And fortunately, we've been able to figure that out and learn from that and grow.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I'm just curious, in that first year, was that a roster just full of freshmen, or did you have any transfers, or did you have some walk-ons that were already on campus? What was it? What did it mostly consist of?
Great question. We had our transfer number was in the single digits, and for the most part, there were not guys transferring from higher levels and necessarily coming down to our level or anything like that. I mean, there were transfers from similar schools and had different situations and those types of things. So we were very committed to building around freshmen. Our first year, I think we had probably about 40 guys. In the fall of 2010, we had about 40 guys who were on campus the year prior who came in, who redshirted. We went through a lifting cycle in the fall of 2009. Our field wasn't ready yet. We didn't have anywhere to practice in the fall of 2009. We didn't play a JV schedule or developmental schedule or anything like that. And then we went through winter conditioning the best we could, and our turf was ready in spring of 2010. So there's a great photo of the turf down and us in spring practice, but the stadium behind us still under construction. It's pretty neat. So we went through a spring ball in spring of 2010, and then went straight to a varsity schedule in the fall of 2010. But we had about 40 guys that fall of 2010 who were with us and who had redshirted and practiced a little bit that spring, and everyone else was a true freshman.
That's awesome.
Was that decision to not play a developmental schedule or JV schedule, was that a decision that you made just because of the number of athletes that you had, or because you didn't have a field, or was it a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, and I think there's plenty of ways to do this and go through the process, and I'm not saying that is a bad process depending upon where you're at. When I started in January of 2009, not that it was late, but it would have been very difficult, very challenging to structure our program in a way that would have allowed us to be ready to play a JV schedule or anything that fall. In addition to the timeline that we were hiring additional coaches past those other two coordinators that we hired, it would have been probably unrealistic to recruit enough student athletes who would have been ready to come in and play that type of developmental year. So a lot of it was just the structure that was in place when I was hired to work forward, towards September 4th, 2010. And that 2009 schedule probably wouldn't have been a realistic goal for us at that point.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I just didn't know if that was a decision that you made, or maybe administration was like, hey, we're not even going to have a field for you, so don't even worry about it. I didn't know kind of what went into that decision.
Yeah.
So, Coach, just to back up just a bit, you were a graduate of Ohio State. Actually got your start in coaching as a student assistant on Coach Tressel's staff. What was that experience like, and what were you able to take away from that to use as you progressed into your coaching career?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a whirlwind type of situation, meaning I think I'm like a lot of college kids, or even players. You probably don't know what you don't know until you're around it and you go through it for a little bit. I look back on that, and it was an awesome experience, and I did learn a lot. But sometimes I kick myself that I didn't take away as much as I should have. Meaning now, as a 39-year-old head coach with 11 years of head coaching experience, man, if you drop me in the Ohio State football facility or Western Kentucky football facility or anywhere for that matter, like I'm going to have a litany of things that I want to see how you do it. I want to take away this, this, and this. I'm gonna pick your brain because now I know better kind of where those differences are and those things that you can learn from others. When I was in my early 20s, I didn't realize that. I was like, oh, this is pretty neat. This is a good experience. But I don't think I was really taking away a lot of those things that I certainly would now at this point. And I think that's one of the cool things, not to get off topic, but when you hear about coaches who maybe take a couple years off or retire or in between things, and those guys go out and learn from others. You talk about Coach Meyer when he left Florida. He spent time out learning from others and spending time around the game. I think as you grow in this, you start to figure out how unique that opportunity is to do that in this profession and see other people operate that way. That's really neat. But the biggest thing I think I took away was just how detail oriented Coach Tressel was. There was no stone left unturned when Coach Tressel was around. It was just very impressive. The attention to the smallest details across the landscape of the program. And here he was coming in and taking over a program that obviously the sky was the limit for him, but the program had been down and I think was coming off a 6-6 year and a number of years of just kind of underperforming. And he comes in from FCS, from Youngstown State, where he'd won, I think, 4 national championships. But there were people that doubted his ability to coach at the highest levels. And to just see him come in and be extremely detail-oriented in every aspect of the program, not just the X's and O's, but I'm talking every single thing. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway that I had from my time there was just seeing him operate in that capacity.
Okay, I'm glad that you said that because towards the end, we're going to do a little segment called 5 and 5, 5 subjects in 5 minutes that we're going to have you do. And Jesse actually was the one that kind of came up with it. We're going to hit on that because it's exactly what you just talked about. I'm going to change gears just for a second. And, as a head coach, you spend a lot of your time, I'm sure, at the facility or out recruiting. But my question is, what do you do in your downtime? I mean, what do you do to relieve stress or just just to get away with your family and enjoy? What are some things that you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I've got a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old at home, so a lot of that time is spent with them and whatever they're doing, whether it's little league baseball, softball, or whatever that may be. So certainly we're doing a lot of that. We've got a fire pit out back at the house, and I tell you, my wife and I a few years ago said we're going to wear this thing out, the most we can. When we get out there and we can just, get away from the TV, we come home, let's get off the couch and let's go do something different and spend time as a family and, go outside and do that. So things like that. I shared with someone not long ago, I'm a terrible golfer. So
hey, same here. Same here. We enjoy going golfing together a couple times, and it's not good. But like you said, just terrible golfers, but enjoy to get on the course.
Yeah, I'm not against golfing, and I'm not against other people golfing, but I'm terrible at it. So I feel fortunate that because we live like a mile from a golf course here locally, and I'm fortunate that I don't have that itch ever to go over and hit the golf course. So I'd rather be home and hang out with my kids and do all that. But we like to travel when we can, and obviously we're limited on when we can do that. We try to take a family vacation every year, but it's just really spending time with the family. I like to read. I probably like a lot of coaches. I used to read every leadership book and football book I can get my hands on and those things. And I've started to transition the past handful of years to getting into more fiction and trying to, get my brain moving in some different ways. And with that, so those are some of the things, we like to do. But, when it's football time and you got little ones at home and, you hang out with my wife and kids, that's about as good as it gets.
So that actually kind of plays a little bit into that 5 and 5 I have at the end. But I want to know, going off the books there, leadership books. Off season, you're doing some rest and relaxation. You're training your brain for another upcoming season. What's your go-to leadership book?
Go-to leadership book. I mean, I think probably the one that has had the most impact on me over the years is Good to Great by Jim Collins. I think that in that book, the premise of that, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's basically the study of companies that went from being what he considers good companies that broke through and found ways to differentiate from the competition, and talks about those things that allowed them to get there, some of those strategic decisions that they made. So I think that's probably been the single biggest book, I guess, that I've come back to on a number of things over the years, just trying to find those ways to break through and take those next steps.
Oh, I like that. That's good. You talk about going to your kids' little league games and stuff. How cool is it that you can step away from the coaching aspect and just be a dad, just be able to watch and enjoy that? How much do what's the difference there? Is in your eyes?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I think it's a healthy thing too, because I think it's a good reminder for me. Well, in a lot of ways, just going in and enjoying your kids, okay. But
Right.
then I'm a coach, and I'm dealing with 100+ student athletes, and even though it's college football, we still deal with parents. A lot of people, I think, in high school coaches say you don't have to deal with parents as much in college. That may be true, but you're still starting that relationship during the recruiting process. You're building a relationship with the parents as well. So you still do have that relationship with parents, and with that, and I think it's good. I've found for me to watch my own children go and struggle, to watch them go and have success, to know if there's 12 players on my son's little league team, and he's the player who's not in the field this inning, and he's in the dugout, to know what that feels like. I think that's a healthy thing for parents in general. I think it's a healthy thing for kids, but it's also healthy for me as a coach to look at that from a different perspective, and have a paradigm shift. So I think it's great. Every now and then, if they'll ask me to come out and coach first base or something like that, if someone had a conflict. And I'm not a very good baseball coach, so I'll go out there and help when I can. But it's good for me to go out there and enjoy, enjoy my family and seeing the kids, but seeing them have success, seeing them fail. That's the greatest part of sports, is that all those lessons it teaches you. And I think the older you get, the more you realize how valuable that is. And I think that when young people don't have that exposure to sports, there's something that's often missing there, because I think it does teach you so many life lessons, and one of those is how to fail, and it's important to know how to do that, because life's going to deal you some tough times. You got to be keep coming. So I think it's great for me to be able to do that as a parent, and see my kids go through those ups and downs. I love it.
Oh, that's a good answer, man. I really like that. I like the learn how to fail, because if you learn how to fail, you learn how to get back up, and how to do that and do it the right way. And I agree. I think sports are a really good way of doing that.
So, Coach, going back to your team a little bit, I'm just curious. Something I ask a lot of our people we interview: what's one word that you could use to describe your team? Describe Lindsey Wilson football.
I would like to think it's consistent. That would probably be the thing that I would come to, and there's a lot of aspects with that, but whether it's the way that we try to coach our guys and lead the program, we try not to get into a lot of smoke and mirrors, and a lot of hype. I tell our guys, we're going to be very honest with you. We're going to try and stay the course. We're going to try to find the best path. It doesn't mean we're not willing to change, make adjustments, but we want to be consistent with our process. I know everybody talks about the process, but you either believe in it or not. I mean, everybody says it. I don't know if everybody really believes in what they're doing as a part of that process. So we try to be consistent with our guys. We ask our guys to be consistent with what they do, and just keep working away on our process. And I don't think that's a sexy answer, but you know, winning isn't always sexy.
I like
Right.
that. I like the consistent answer because just I mean not just football but any sport or anything in your life you want to be consistent at, and just try to stay the course. And like you said, I try to stay away from the process because everybody uses that term, the process. But as long as you're consistent and this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it, I think that's that speaks volumes. And it obviously did the season that you just had.
Yeah, y'all were consistent all year.
Yes, absolutely.
You can see that on the scoreboard.
So
I have one more before we get into 5 and 5.
That's
unless
fine.
you have
That's fine.
something.
No,
I actually
I'm
just
good.
thought of this. It wasn't in my notes, but I'm just curious. With COVID, I know a lot. The NAIA gave you guys a COVID year for all the teams. How many of your current starters are coming back next year, if any?
Well, we've got a few guys who are still making those decisions. We've got a handful of guys who graduated, this term, and they can come back and have another year. Some of them have already decided that they are going to. A couple of them have decided that they're not going to, and we're trying to give them that room to make that decision. Certainly, we'd like to have as many of them back as possible, but man, we just finished a grueling year, not just physically but mentally. It was a grueling year. And even all the way back into the fall before we were really playing the bulk of our regular season. So I think right now we've got 14 or 15 starters scheduled to be back. And
Wow.
obviously we've got a few positions where you kind of have co-starters or guys that rotated, maybe started a handful of games and this that. But I think we're in that range right now, and we got a few guys that are still making those final decisions. But we got a number of guys coming back.
Yeah, honestly, to be able to win the national title, especially the way that y'all did it in the middle of a COVID year, in the middle of a pandemic, they should have gave y'all 2 trophies. Like should have had a little side trophy to go along with that.
Yeah.
But I have one last one. If you have anything?
Are you talking about the 5 and 5?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Those guys that are coming back, and it just kind of hit me. How does that affect your scholarships?
Well, for us, in NAI,
Right.
we can. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. We can play essentially 24, what they call equivalencies, but 24 scholarships over the course of the season. What you can have on your roster can be a little bit higher than that. So really it's up to school how they want to handle that. But for us, it's really not a big thing. Our school's been really great with us in saying that if anybody wants to come back to continue their education because of that COVID year, that we're going to honor those scholarships and we're going to do that. So fortunately, we've been able to not have to make any of those tough decisions about, is there someone else that, can't have a scholarship or anything like that. We haven't been in that position, and that's been great for us. So the short term is no significant changes. We're going to have a year here where we can sort some of those things out. And then I think we get a year removed from this COVID season, and all those things really settle out and go back a lot more towards normal.
Good deal. All right. So that's all the questions I have. I know Jesse has a 5 and 5 for you.
So, Coach, we do a live show every week, and we always end it with what we call a 5 and 5, where we take a category and we each do a top 5 list, and we do it in a 5-minute window.
Ish.
Typically, 5-ish. Typically, we have time to prepare for this, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
Okay.
But can you give us 5 coaches from any level, and it may came from books or training, whatever, 5 coaches from any level that you would say influenced your coaching style?
Well, Coach Tressel's a natural one. That I mentioned earlier, and just being around him. So is it only books or learning?
It could be anything. It could be from a clinic. It could be from actually, one-on-one talks. Anything that you took away that helped influence the type of coaching style that you have today.
Okay, and then certainly the other one that would come to mind right away for me is Dale Carlson, who was the head coach at Ohio Dominican when I worked there. So I worked for Dale for 5 seasons, and he probably had more impact on my coaching style, the way we run our program than anybody, just because that was really my first job after college. And then, we went through that process of starting a program and watching Dale be the head coach. So I think Dale's impact on me is probably bigger than anybody else. You look at just the way we structure practices and all those things. Certainly we've put our own spin on it over the years, but Dale would be number one. So I guess those two guys right there. I love Coach Saban. I'm an Ohio State guy. I'm not an Alabama fan by any means. I don't dislike Alabama, but I'm not an Alabama fan. I love the further we get into this, the more I love Coach Saban, and not just because he's the GOAT and he's going to go down as the greatest of all time, but when you just listen to the way that he runs his program, the way that he talks to his players, and the way that he presents things and those challenges, I think the guy is clearly a genius. Now, he's got the best players in college football. All right, we all know that, but he's built that program to that point where they can attract those guys and they can get guys to come in and compete. I think that's one of the cool aspects. We talk about competition. You go to Alabama, you may be a first-round draft pick before it's all said and done. They're going to develop you and do those things. But you don't go to Alabama because you want to play early. You're going to have to compete against the greatest players in college football. So you have to be wired in that way. And I think that's a cool thing that they can attract those guys and get them to buy in. So that would be number three from that standpoint. And then, looking around, I'm a big fan of Bill Walsh. I've read a lot of Bill Walsh books and a lot of his things. And I really enjoy David Shaw at Stanford as well. But a lot of those things that Coach Shaw's built on, he attributes to Bill Walsh. So we'll say Coach Walsh from that standpoint. So that's four. Man, number five. I don't know. That's a tough one from that standpoint of who's that fifth person from that standpoint. I've tried to read a lot of historical stuff, and I think probably getting back into Paul Brown. I'm a Bengals fan, but just looking at Paul Brown, his impact on football in Ohio, from all the way up from high school, and he was at Massillon, Washington High School, and to be in with the Buckeyes, to be with the Bengals and the Browns, and I've tried to study a lot of the things that he did, again from a detail-oriented standpoint. I think Coach Tressel referenced him often, so that's a little bit of a generic one, but I think that there's been a lot of impact on the things that I've read and studied that have come from Coach Brown, even though that was years and years ago in a different way. So that's a little bit all over the place, but those are the five I'd come up with.
That's a good list.
That
I
really
put you on
is.
the spot, so that was really good to get those out on short notice. But that was a good list.
It was impressive to see you be able to go not only from the high school level all the way up like with Saban and Coach Tressel and all the way, because they even Saban was in the pros too, so that's kind of impressive.
This is a lot about you as a coach, and where you're at, your role as a coach, to be able to take from all aspects of the coaching tree, from all levels and things. So that's really cool that you're hitting on every level.
He did.
And so many coaches say it, and it's exactly true. I mean, there's very few original thoughts in this whole thing. I mean, we're all doing things that other people have done before us, and every now and then you have a real innovator and some things that go on with scheme and those type of aspects. But for the most part, we're all doing variations of things that have been done before by others. You're just trying to find ways to do it better and trying to find ways to be yourself and find those things that fit within your personality and make it work for you and your players.
It works for you, Coach. Obviously it does. That's it for us, unless you have anything else or Jesse has anything else for you.
That's what I say. Thanks again, Coach, for coming on and talking with us. It's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing what Lindsey Wilson does in this next coming season. Good luck. And we'll definitely certainly be keeping up with you. I'd like to have you back on sometime if you're available.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you inviting me on, and it's been fun.
Oh yeah, we've had a good time with it, Coach, and like Jesse said, good luck next season. Would love to have you back on. Because I know your schedule is extremely busy. We'll probably be sending you an email or whatever sometime after your season's over with to get you back on. Hopefully, celebrate another national championship.
That sounds good.
All right,
Thank
brother.
you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.